All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. Yeah, NBA is back. We had a nice little break on deck, which it's always nice to have a built-in break. I'm never mad about it, but you do miss the love of the game, especially when you have to watch the All-Star game. So it's good to be back. Madness, how are you feeling, man? It's been too long.
Feeling good. Glad to have the NBA back. It's always nice to get a little break, but then towards the end of it, you're like, where the hell is it?
You're like, I miss it. And then there's like all the random news you don't really care about, but you have to pretend like you do. Like
Yeah.
tanking. I don't care if teams tank. As long as they give us injury news, like tank away, get your first round pick. I put in the Discord. The Browns have proven getting a first pick really does not
No.
matter that much if you don't know how to draft or develop players. But anyway, DFS, we have 7 games on deck. Let's get them. Wagwan, good to see everybody in the chat. Starting off, we have a decent game. Pacers going up against the Wizards, 2 teams not known for their defense, and a decent total, 2 at 233. So, and a close spread at 2.5 points. For the Pacers, guys like Zubac is still out for them. Siakam's out. TJ McConnell, we just found out, is ruled out. And so this team, they're missing some guys, but we did find out guys like Aaron Nesmith will play. Huff will be in. So not as many injuries as we thought there might be going into the game, but still a great matchup. How do you see the Pacers?
Yeah, Pacers look great, especially against Washington, like you mentioned. They're shorthanded, so they don't have Siakam, like you mentioned. Mathurin is off the team, so there should be plenty of minutes to go around. I like the big men the most. Micah Potter at 3,900 and Jay Huff. They just don't have any other bigs. So I like them quite a bit. Great matchup. No Sar for the Wizards too, which helps the big man
True.
situation. I am getting less Jarris Walker than the field currently. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll probably just ride it out. And then Andrew Nemhard is the only other guy grabbing a good chunk of ownership. I just don't know if I can pay 7,300 for Andrew Nemhard. So it's gonna be Micah Potter and Jay Huff in a probably pretty big way. And then I'm probably just matching the field, if not even a little bit under on both Jarris Walker and Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, it's weird. For me, I didn't get a lot of exposure to the Pacers the way I thought I would. And I think it's because there's quite a few different value spots on the slate and they're just an option. Micah Potter, he shows up the absolute most currently. He's in 61% of my lineups. Feels like a lot, not gonna lie. He is 3,900, should see 25 minutes, great matchup. So I'm not gonna do anything as of right now to tinker with it, but I don't really want to see him show up in like that 80% range, but he's fine where he is. Jay Huff is showing up right in about 31% of my lineups. I did put an exposure maximum on him, which is saying, hey, I don't want more than 35% of Jay Huff in my lineups. And so he's showing up in roughly 31%. So still slightly over the field there. Nimbard is one of those guys who wasn't showing up, and probably for good reason. Like you mentioned, he's a little pricey. We're not seeing an extreme discount. But just because of the fantastic matchup and there being no Mathurin, no Siakam, seeing an increase in usage, I wanted to still have some exposure to Nimbard. So I just put a 15% min on him. Not going to be over the field or anything like that, but at least I won't be completely stranded if he has a good night. I did pretty much the same thing with Aaron Nesmith. Couldn't get more of him in lines. So I just put a 10% min there, and he's showing up in exactly 10% of lineups. So not priorities by any means, but they're present. Guys like Quentin Jackson showing up in about 4% of lineups. He's not a priority for me. Walker is, like you said, he's not showing up really at all anymore. At least for me, only in about 4% of lineups. I was in my earlier runs getting around 20%, but Jarris Walker's one of those guys I'm not going to force. So I don't know. How are you kind of viewing the Pacers as a whole, as a unit? Seeing the ownership to them, but it seems like we don't have as much.
Yeah, I mean, I almost wonder if the Jarris Walker ownership number comes down quite a bit because it does feel like there is other value plays, and we'll get to them, especially. I guess it's more so at the center position. There are a couple of power forward centers, Jay Huff being one of them, but the Jarris Walker ownership is kind of surprising. He is probably my favorite player on the Pacers right now, but I don't know. It seems very high to me.
Yeah. Maybe the price tag too, like you said, though, not anything I'm going to try and force the DS to do differently outside of the couple spots we already mentioned. And if you're wondering, what are we talking about when we say like the DS or the domination station? This is DFS Army's website. Click the link in the description if you're interested in joining. You can have access to the Discord where we're updating news. And then DS is great as well. So definitely a lot of pros. Can't not to mention the community is awesome too. Darius mentioned he likes Potter way more than Walker today. It looks like a lot of us are on the same page there because I have significantly more. Hopefully, it all works out for us. Other side of this game is interesting still, too, because like you mentioned, Washington, they're missing some players who do a lot for them. Guys like Alexander Starr, he's out, which means Vucevic, he's back and he's playing. He should start or he could start. Either way, we're expecting him to see 25 plus minutes at 4,300, and he's a really good points per minute player. A guy I like a lot on this slate. They're also not going to have D'Angelo Russell playing tonight. Anthony Davis isn't going to play this year. And then Cam Whitmore, he's been out for a while. So a couple of things there. How are you looking at Washington?
I think it's just going to be Tristan Vukcevic for me. They just don't have any other big men. Like you mentioned, Sarah's out. They traded Marvin Bagley. They could go to guys like Will Riley and Anthony Gill, but those guys are very meh. So I do like Vukcevic quite a bit. He's going to be pretty chalky, but for good reason. The matchup is great against a Pacers team that is in a very similar boat. So
Yeah.
he's going to be the top priority here for the Wizards for me. The rest of the team, I'm not getting a ton of like at all. They go pretty deep. They have a lot of playable dudes just from an NBA perspective, but from a DFS perspective, not really a team I'm getting too much besides Vooks.
Yeah. And you can see that when you just look at our projections for their minutes, you don't see anyone on this team getting above 30 minutes. That's relatively rare and a good sign of they're just going to kind of ride the hot hand if someone gets hot, but they just play everybody here. So I locked Vucevic here and called it a day. I didn't do anything to anyone else. Next game's a lot less interesting unless you see things very differently. For Houston tonight, they're going up against the Hornets, who have become a better defensive team, but they're an elite rebounding team. And so it just makes for a not great DFS game typically. For Houston, they're without Steve Adams, but that doesn't change too much. They're healthy, basically. Do you like Houston at all?
I don't. The only guy I'm really getting any is Tari Eason, and it's not in any sort of big way at all. I mean, he's 6,300. He's just going to project as the best value on Houston. I don't mind the matchup against your Charlotte Hornets, but I don't love Houston at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. You could talk me into a Shangoon or a KD shot, but they're not priorities for me. Lowest game total on the slate, spread's fine. These teams played each other pretty close last time out, and no one really had a fantastic DFS day. For the Hornet side of this game, still underwhelming. Miles Bridges is out with a suspension, so we should see Grant Williams start again. He's the one Hornet that is showing up some for me. Diabate, he's out, so we should see Calc Brenner start once again. Still not showing up too much. And then Kobe White isn't starting, or he isn't going to play tonight either. So Hornets aren't standing out too much, but do you like anyone in particular here?
Yeah, I think Grant Williams, like you mentioned, is going to be the priority for the Hornets. Would expect he starts at the 4 without Miles Bridges, and no Musa Diabate either for the Hornets. So plenty of big man minutes available for Grant Williams. 4K, not a great matchup, but he makes things work. So Grant Williams looks good. The only other guy I do have some interest in, touched on him in my props video, is Brandon Miller. I like him a little bit less in DFS because that 8K price tag is really tough to swallow, but he's been in great form over the last month or so. And he's actually been great without Miles Bridges. He's averaging like 32 points per game, real points per game without Bridges in 2 games this season. So I do like Brandon Miller. I wish it was a different matchup, but the price tag is going to keep ownership down at least a little bit. So Grant Williams looks the best, and I do like Miller as a leverage play.
Yeah, I understand the Miller play. I think I said it last time these two teams played. It wouldn't shock me if like Ball or Knipple can overcome this tough matchup and just be super efficient, especially with Bridges out. I just don't feel strongly enough about it at their price tags and ownership. It's just a little bit harder for me to get there, but I understand it. I didn't do anything to anyone on the Hornets, but like I mentioned, Grant Williams, he shows up in about 10% of lineups. A little surprising. LaMelo Ball wasn't showing up earlier, but he's now also showing up in close to 10% of lineups. Earlier, Grant Williams was showing up right at field weight exposure, around 25%, and LaMelo Ball was nowhere to be seen. I wish Grant Williams was showing up a little bit more, but we keep talking about it. This power forward slate is pretty strong with a lot of very viable options. And I really do see and view Grant Williams as just a possible one. Yeah, Tejuan, I do prefer Potter. So that's part of why I'm not going to force him in. He's just a viable lineup filler if you happen to need a 4K forward. All right. Things start to get a little bit more interesting in this next run of games. We have the Nets going up against the Cavs. The problem with this game is the gigantic spread of 15.5 points. Everyone, including myself, we're all afraid of a blowout here. For the Nets, though, a team that's on the watch out list for a likely to be tanking team, they are going to be without, let's see, Brooklyn, Nick Claxton. And so that's why you've seen like a boost of interest in guys like Day'Ron Sharpe. He should start tonight. And then we know the Cavs are not a great defensive team. So interesting spot, but I wasn't as excited about it as I thought it would be. Do you like the Nets tonight?
I like them in a sense. So Day'Ron Sharpe is going to look like the best play. I almost want to go underweight on him just because of the matchup. And we do have other guys in that range. I mean, we talked about Vucevic. Yeah. We're going to talk about Paul Reed. And there's an opportunity to get different at center if you want to spend up and go up to Wemby. So I don't think you're forced to play Day'Ron Sharpe in a tough matchup in a game they could get blown out in. That said, he's a great point per minute guy. No Nick Claxton. So I get it, but I think I'm going to fall on the side of going underweight. I do like going to Igor Demon. He's hard to trust because his minutes are all over the place. But I think he presents at least a good chunk or a good ceiling at 4,900. So I do like going overweight on Mr. Igor. And then Michael Porter. I'll never have an issue landing on Michael Porter on a team without any other playmakers. We know the ceiling's there, so I like him too.
Yeah. I think you really wrapped this up great. I have a 10% min on Michael Porter Jr. I do that pretty much every slate. That's not too much of a surprise. He has the highest usage rate on this team, plays the most minutes, that kind of thing. He is someone that I don't plan on trying to get too much leverage on as we get closer towards the end of the season. I think they will just be more and more careful with those minutes as we proceed forward for the next 2 months, but we're not there quite yet. I have a 10% min on Sharpe because he's the one big that didn't show up naturally for me. He's also a tier lower for me than like Vucevic and Paul Reed. You can even put Michael Potter in there too. So I like Sharpe. I have that 10% min on him just so I don't have zero, but I'm not going to prioritize him over the 2 other centers I like more. And then Demon, he was popping in like 30-40% of my lineups. And so I like him, but like you mentioned, his minutes are far from consistent. So I capped him at 10%, and he's showing up right at 10%. I still have a little bit of leverage, like 3% of an edge over the field if he does pop off, but I didn't need 20 to 30% of someone whose minutes have been far from consistent, but it is a really good matchup, so I like still being over the field there. And then that's it. I'm not going too crazy on the Nets, but, I don't think they're bad plays. The next side of this game, the Cavs side, is tough because they're getting healthier. And, of course, James Harden has been here for the last 3 games, and they don't have a lot of injury news. Tomlin is still out for them. Doesn't impact too many things because the only guys who are viable options for most of us are guys like Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and Jared Allen. Evan Mobley is back, though. He should be on a minutes limit. And so that really decreases my interest, at least, in pretty much all of them. But I still took a couple of shots on these Cavs. Do you like any?
I think it's just the guards and Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. The issue is going to be that spread. I Don't know how much you can trust it, but at the same time, like, it's the Brooklyn Nets. They should be able to do whatever they want, even if that is in 3 quarters. So we know the ceiling is there on these guys. We saw Harden put up 50 points 2 games ago before a blowout last time out. So the matchup is phenomenal. It's hard to go too heavy on either of them just with the blowout consideration there. So it's really just Mitchell and Harden, and then with Mobley back, it makes that front court tough to trust. So Mitchell and Harden in a small fashion, and that's going to be about it for me.
We're aligned. I have a 5% min on Donovan Mitchell, really for the FOMO of it. I just don't want to not have any exposure to him if he pops off in a matchup that's not tough. But he's 9,500. He's 500 more than James Harden. The nice thing about Donovan Mitchell, though, is that his ceiling and floor have both been relatively consistent since Harden's come back. And so that's why I don't mind having as much exposure to him. James Harden, I have a 5% min on matching the field. He's been a bit more volatile than Donovan Mitchell, which is kind of why we see him price lower. But you have to imagine that price tag is going to keep falling if he has more of these like 30 fantasy point performances. So like you said, not getting leverage here because it's still pretty risky given their price tags, but I think you can still do worse on this slate. Game of the night, Atlanta Hawks going up against the Philadelphia Sixers. Close spread, high total. This is what DFS streams are made of. For Atlanta, they are no real injury news here. Just Kuminga isn't playing or joining the team yet. Going up against the Sixers team without Joel Embiid or Paul George. But still, I'm only playing one player. Am I missing something? What do you see?
I'm in the same boat. It's just Jalen Johnson for me, and it's kind of surprising. I just think Jalen Johnson looks great. He's probably too cheap. We've seen him closer to 11K before the break. But going into the break, 59 DraftKings points, 60, 71, 64, 71, playing damn near 40 minutes a game. I love Jalen Johnson yet again here. So he's going to look awesome. And then the rest of this team, for as much as I like the Philadelphia side, which we'll talk through, I'm not really getting much of it. It's just Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, it's really just Jalen. B-Dubs is with us on this too. Jalen Johnson's a leverage play for me tonight. His ownership's just too low on DK for this price tag. For arguably a top 2 guy when it comes to the upside he can bring on a slate, you can decide if that's Maxey or Wemby who I'm including in this. But I love Jalen Johnson. So I put that 40% min on him. I want to be more than double over the field, and he is showing up in exactly 40% of lineups. So love it when that works out the way I want it to. Sixers, they are, like I mentioned, without Joel Embiid. They're without Paul George. Outside of that, they're healthy. Going up against an Atlanta team that I've never been afraid to attack. We do know Dyson Daniels is a pretty good defender, so guard can be tougher. But you mentioned it. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I love the Sixers. I'm going to have Maxey as a core play. 9,600 is just too cheap for him without Paul George and Joel Embiid. He should see all the usage in this offense. So he's probably my favorite spend up. And I like VJ Edgecombe quite a bit too. He is drawing 30% ownership, but I just think he looks great. So Maxey and Edgecombe are going to be my favorite plays here, but there's value plays here too. Dominic Barlow should get the start at power forward. No Embiid there, so the rebound equity should be there. Quentin Grimes, we've seen him play a ton of minutes when George is out. He's going to look like a solid value option and kind of that Grant Williams tier. And even a guy like Trenton Watford, probably coming off the bench, seeing 25-ish minutes maybe. Probably more of a leverage type value option than anything, but worth a flyer. I don't know that I can get to a Dembona though. 3,300 is very cheap for a starting center, so I get it, but we have other center options on this slate. So Tyrese Maxey in a big way, VJ Edgecombe in a big way, and then I'm matching the field on Barlow and Grimes. And then if I land on a little bit of Watford, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I like this team a lot. The DS will give you a lot of the Sixers. I have a 20% min on VJ Edgecombe because he wasn't showing up a lot for me. And I didn't feel quite confident enough in him to put a 30% min and match the field. I just like to have some exposure on guys that fall into this bucket. We have seen him be fantastic without Paul George and Joel Embiid, though. So I do agree this is a really good spot. Just would like for him to show up a bit more naturally. Tyrese Maxey, I like your love for him. I did cap him, though, at 50%. Still will be over the field as long as ownership doesn't go crazy by the time we hit lock. But I will almost always cap the highest owned stud to try and get more leverage on the other studs I think are going overlooked. But he's the highest owned stud for a reason. This is a fantastic spot for him, and he is too cheap without Joel Embiid and Paul George. So it's a good spot. He is showing up in exactly 50% of lineups, and I love that. Outside of that, let's see what other Sixers show up. Barlow, I had to put an 60% exposure maximum on him. He was showing up in about 80% of lineups, which is not bad given the context of the slate, but we keep talking about it. There's a ton of other options. I just want to make sure I did have the space to have a nice mixture of these forwards and big plays that are also in that 4 or 5K range. Quentin Grimes shows up a lot. He's in 46% of my lineups right now. Does make me a little nervous, but I trust him a bit more with some of the injuries they have in this game environment. So I'm not going to do anything to cap that, even though I kind of want to. And then Kelly Oubre is not showing up as much as I thought he would. He's only showing up about 1% of lineups for me. How are you kind of looking at Kelly-O?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised I'm not getting as much of him either. I mean, he's going to play a bunch of minutes and probably 35 plus. So no George. He probably takes on that Paul George role. I don't mind him as a leverage piece. He does have guard and forward eligibility too, so it makes lineups work. So a little surprised I'm not getting to more of him, but probably the nature of the slate.
Yeah, that's the thing we run into sometimes when we have a lot of value. These higher end of 5, 6, 7K guys can just really go under the radar. I will put a 15% min on Kelly-O just because this game has the highest total on the slate, and I'm always just going to try and get some exposure to some of these high upside guys that we've seen already have high ceilings this season. So another guy I won't force field weight exposure to, but I like having some exposure to them still. For the Pistons going up against the Knicks, another game kind of like the Rockets Hornets, where it's going to be a better game to watch than for DFS purposes, more than likely. For Detroit, they are basically healthy outside of the suspensions. Jalen Duren is out, so we should see Paul Reed start at center. We love Paul Reed when Jalen Duren is out. And Isaiah Stewart is out too, which also helps Paul Reed. It also boosts the minutes floor for guys like Ron Holland too. So still some viable options here, but they're going up against the Knicks. How are you kind of looking at Detroit?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Paul Reed, anytime he's getting the start and he's getting the minutes, I think you got to go to him. So he's going to look great. He's in that that tier of centers we're talking about. My mind just spaced. Vucevic and Day'Ron Sharpe, he's in that tier. Probably second behind Vucevic in priority-wise for me in that tier, just above Sharpe. So I think he looks great. The matchup against the Knicks does not scare me. Karl-Anthony Towns defensively does not scare me. Mitchell Robinson's a little different story, but he only plays about 23-ish minutes a game. So Paul Reed looks great. The rest of the team, not so much. Cade is going to look like a decent leverage option if you get there. If you think this game is competitive and I just don't love it. He's only averaged about 43 points per game against the Knicks this season in 2 games. So I don't love Cade, but if you land on him, I'm never going to talk you off playing Cade Cunningham. So it's really just Paul Reed from the Pistons for me. And if you land on some other guys like Tobias Harris or Cade Cunningham, I'm fine with it. Won't talk you out of it.
Dixon, I see your question. We'll get to it once we get through these games. we gotta try and get through these because people are itching to try and make sure they have the information, and we can't go live until 6, so gotta try and stay focused until the end. But I'll get to it. That was a good question. For me, Paul Reed is showing up in 69% of lineups. He's a core play. I'm just not gonna do too much there, so I like that. And then no other Detroit Pistons shows up naturally, but I do have a 10% min on Cade Cunningham. A lot of these guys here recently haven't shown us a lot of ceiling. and Cade is one of those guys. But I'll play him even in tough matchups. He's similar to like a Brunson or a Donovan Mitchell who can do well even in a close game. So as long as it stays close, Cade has upside. So I have a 10% min there. And those are really the only two Detroit guys I'm looking at. The Knicks have been frustrating as all hell. I think I'm still kind of tilted by them just from before the All-Star break. They're healthy now, but they have a brutal matchup going up against Detroit. No Duren, but Detroit's still been a good defense without him, so it doesn't change as much as I would want it to. Cat seeing ownership. You a cat guy tonight?
No. No. The price tag is really nice, but man, he's frustrating as all hell. He's tough to trust.
Mm-hmm.
I get it if you land on him, but man, he went into the All-Star break in good form, 47 points and 43 points. I get it. 8K is far too cheap for Cat, but probably not for me on this slate. And he doesn't have the power forward eligibility. If he had that eligibility, probably a different story.
Agreed.
But I think we just have too many center options tonight. The guy I am getting probably too much of is Josh Hart. It did come down a little bit. And I'm happy that it came down. I was getting like 48% of him earlier.
Yeah, let me refresh because I am still getting a ton of Josh Hart. So
I'm glad we're in the same boat at least. Let me pull him
What
up.
was that?
Because that number surprises me.
Yeah. Okay. B-Dub said that the number will go down on the next run. So crisis avoided there. Hopefully. Anyone else you like?
I think no, to be honest. This team we kind of know what they're going to do. Bridges at 6,400. We know what we're getting out of him. OG, same thing. I think the only pieces that really have the true ceiling you're looking at are Karl-Anthony Towns at 8K, like we talked about. And Jalen Brunson is probably a little too cheap. The issue is we haven't really seen the ceiling from him this year. And I don't think that comes out against the Detroit Pistons. So the matchup is really driving a lot of this. So not really a team I'm getting too much.
Yeah, I feel like that's the Knicks in general on this slate. Like they just have not been popping their true ceiling. So now Josh Hart isn't showing up for me at all, which wasn't exactly what I was shooting for, but it's still better than like the 50% I was seeing. So I have a 10% min on Josh Hart. I just want to be over the field on him, but not someone I need 20+% of. And then Jalen Brunson I have a 5% min on. Same argument. It's just the fact it should be a close competitive game. Guys like Brunson can get points in a multitude of ways. And so these are the game environments I like having some exposure to him, but he's not a priority because of a tough matchup. Bridges, 5% min on. Just I like his low ownership is the pure reason. He's not a great player. OG, screw him until proven otherwise. Kind of the way I'm looking at the Knicks. Tough team, tough game. You don't want to go too crazy, but I still like having a little bit of exposure for the one or two guys who will pop in that game. Right. All right, next up, we have the Raptors going up against Chicago. Great total at 233.5, 6-point spread. We love picking on Chicago. That is the goal. The problem is, and probably like the antithesis of that argument, are the Raptors, who play absolutely everybody when they're healthy. Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett can all break a slate, but there's almost no way of really telling who that will be when they're healthy. RJ Barrett's popping the most, though. Are you on the Barrett train?
I am rerunning now, but I was getting a good chunk of RJ Barrett. The matchup is just awesome. And it's been that way all season. So I do like, I'm at 146. Here we go. Yeah, so I'm still getting a good chunk of RJ Barrett.
Yep.
I have no issue with that in this matchup. I'm good with it. The other guy is Scotty Barnes. I don't know how much I love that just because he's in a similar pricing tier of, I mean, Jalen Johnson's a little bit higher, but the guys Tyrese Mack, I would just rather find them the money for Johnson or a Maxey type player. Yeah. I do love the matchup. We know the ceiling's there for Scotty Barnes. So if you land on him, I got no issue with it. But it's really just RJ Barrett from the Raptors for me.
Yeah, it's that $9,100 price tag on Scotty Barnes. Yeah. It's hard to look at. If money wasn't a thing, oh yeah, it's a Scotty Barnes slate. But the fact that you look at the 9K range, you have Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Brunson, the list goes on. I can't click on Scotty Barnes at
Yeah.
that price tag. That's almost ridiculous when they're healthy. Brandon Ingram, I do have a 5% min on. A little bit easier for me to click on his name at almost 1,000K less. And then RJ Barrett just shows up by himself. The DS likes him a lot. He's the cheapest out of the four who have plenty of upside. So I'm okay with it, but he's not someone that I would go out of my way to force exposure to, but I let the DS do its thing as long as I don't hate it. So fine with that. And I mentioned the 5% min on Ingram, and that's pretty much it there. For the Bulls, they have the tough matchup against the Raptors. Raptors are a good defensive team. Chicago, they're getting a little bit healthier with Josh Giddey coming back, Trey Jones coming back. Really messes things up from a DFS perspective of who do we want to make a priority. I don't have a min on anyone, but it looks like Sexton's starting to pop a little bit. What are your thoughts on the Bulls?
Yeah, I don't love the amount of Colin Sexton I'm getting. So yeah, they're fully healthy. They got Giddy back, they got Jones back. They have about 14 guards on this team, and that's why I don't love getting as much Sexton as I am. He does grade out as a fair enough value. The matchup isn't great. I might come down a little bit on that. I'm getting 23%, so it's nothing crazy, but I don't really like this team like at all.
Yeah.
So if I land on Sexton, fine, so be it. I'll trust the DS. But fully healthy Bulls team with nothing to play for, it's hard to trust.
You have Giddey's coming back from his injury, so we only have him projected for about 24 minutes. Then they traded for Jaden Ivey to come, so that's like 24 minutes. And then Simons is here now too. Way too many guards for me to feel super comfortable. But we do know, just like you can say about a lot of these guards now, that Colin Sexton does have upside if he sees these minutes. So if he sees 25 minutes, he can get 30 plus fantasy points and get in a nuts lineup. So I'm not going to X him out or anything like that, but I don't want more than 20%. And so I capped him at 15%, and he's showing up right there at that 15% number, which I'm fine with. But I'll be somewhere between 10 and 15%, not 20 or 30 like I was getting before I capped him. And that's about it for the Bulls. For the Suns, tough matchup against the Spurs. They are an elite defense when Wemby is healthy. But for Phoenix, Dylan Brooks is still out with that suspension. And so we should see Grayson Allen, if he's healthy, play and start, or we could see Chris or Ryan Dunn start in this spot. And then the usage bump with Dylan Brooks out because of the forwards. And then Grayson Allen is questionable. Like I mentioned, if he gets ruled out, that's a slight minutes boost to Jalen Green, but he's injury prone. They're not going to play him too much more. But guys like Goodwin, Dunn see a nice boost there too. Do you like the Suns in this hammer game?
The Suns are like my least favorite team in the NBA, and they've been that way all season.
They're my third least favorite.
I like how you got a running.
Are always going to be above them.
Yes, you're right about the Warriors. We haven't seen a ceiling out of Devin Booker this year, and I get he's cheap, but this isn't the spot to attack him, in my opinion, against a good defensive Spurs team. If Grayson Allen is out, I guess you can make a case for some of these other guys. The issue is they're all priced. They're priced accordingly. I just don't know how you get to the Suns on this slate. They're not going to be somebody I get to.
Yeah. Tough team to look at. I do have Devin Booker. I have a 15% min on him. He will be a leverage play for me tonight. It's gross because he has not had a ceiling performance, like you've said, all year. But if I'm going to attack the Spurs, I'm willing to attack them with guards and the backcourt. And so 8% with that price tag, so tempting. It was going to be Cat or Devin Booker for me. It had to be one of them. I feel like Devin Booker's the lesser of two evils. And so leverage play there. And then we just
say that's a bad spot to be in.
I have to do something gross on every slate. If I'm not, it doesn't feel right. It's not in my blood. Next game or next side of this game, we have the Spurs going up against the Suns. Suns are a good defensive team. Spurs are getting healthy. No real injury news here. I like these guys more than I thought I would, but I feel like you probably won't because it is a tough defensive matchup.
I do like Victor Wembanyama. I think he's
Yeah.
a key to getting different on this slate. Everybody else is going to play those mid 5K centers. If you go up to Wemby and he drops 80, you are in the driver's seat. So I like Wemby quite a bit, drawing sub 10% ownership right now. So I think he's a great leverage piece tonight. Mark Williams be damned on defense. Give me Wemby. I do have a little bit of interest in Dylan Harper. The minutes are volatile. He's not going to play a ton of minutes, but when he's out there, he's very efficient. He puts up good numbers. And then De'Aaron Fox, I want to like him. If I land on him, I'm good with it, but I'm not going to force him. The only piece I'm really forcing is going to be Wemby. And it's not like I'm forcing him in everything. He's not going to be a core player or anything like that. But he is a very key way of getting different. It resets your lineup from everybody else. So I like Wemby quite a bit.
Yep. We pay up when they pay down. I love that. I have Victor Wembanyama as a leverage play too. I have a 20% min on him. I love being very, very over the field on Wemby. And you don't have to go all one or the other unless you're playing single entry. Then you do have to make a decision. But if you're 150 or even 20 maxing, I don't think it's crazy to have like a 20-30% min on Victor Wembanyama. So I have a ton of the cheap bigs, but your lineups are instantly different just by doing that. And so I like that call. I have a 5% min on De'Aaron Fox and a 5% min on Castle. Just two guys I think have upside for their price tag if this game can stay close and competitive, which I think it has a higher chance of doing than the spread implies. So yeah, y'all, that's pretty much this slate. We'll get to some of the questions. Dixon said, Josiah Madness, if there was one NBA player, past or present, you wouldn't let date your sister, who would it be? Do you have an answer for that, Madness? Is there a Stephon Diggs of the NBA?
I don't know. I was gonna say that's a loaded question. We could go down a rabbit hole there.
I know, right? But Stephon Diggs for the NFL is the obvious answer. For the NBA, yes. I think most of them probably just nobody, honestly. Stay away from athletes has always been a rule of thumb for almost everybody.
Unless you're Giannis. Giannis is about as good as a human as they come. I'll say that.
Giannis is a real one. Dennis Rodman was Dixon's answer. And no, Dixon, LaMelo didn't hit me today in his truck, but I have seen him driving in Charlotte before when I'm in Charlotte, and it's always insane. Like, you're always like, who's that idiot? Like, driving way too fast, like breaking in between the lines. And someone's always like, oh, that's the LaMelo. I'm like, oh, cool. Good to know. But yeah, I think that was the only question we got. So I think we should be good to go to wrap up, unless there's anything else you want to add, man.
No, it's a nice slate. Glad we're back.
Yeah, glad we're back. You'll be back tomorrow, so we'll be able to keep the train going. But look forward to celebrating with y'all in the Discord. If you're not a member, like I said, click the link in the description. And if you are a member, at least hit the like button. Bruh, if someone hit my car the way he was driving, I would crash out. Like, there would be more tape than just but hey, it's LaMelo. If it was Cam Newton, I'd probably be like, it's fine. Keep going, man. Keep going. But LaMelo,
I'd be in a neck brace real quick.
Come on. Let's see. Yeah, we know about that one, Code Res. All right, y'all. Peace out. See you tomorrow. Good luck.